How are you, sir?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing really well, man. Thanks for jumping in, brother. I appreciate this very
Yeah.
much. We got a whole bunch of good humans over here. Shout out to Roberto for the introduction. Mr. Roberto Romero is a dear friend. And I was just texting with a gentleman who says to tell you hello. His name is Mr. John Knox.
What's up, Johnny?
Yeah, man. He's a good dude. Really, really, really good human, man. He and I
Yeah, I
connected.
like John.
He's a great guy, man. We connected in 2020, 2021 with all the nonsense going on and
Yep.
saw him on the news standing up for firefighters in LA and he came on with our young men and we became fast friends, man. Have stayed connected ever since. So, and I know your story part of it at least started out in the
My
same fashion.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
So,
John actually, John and I were actually at DC together. We were he was on the show, my show a couple times.
oh,
Yeah, a
nice, man.
couple different
Yeah,
times.
I didn't realize he was out in DC until I was out at the White House last week
Yeah.
for a day or just for a whirlwind trip and came back. And then he shot me a message and he's like, "Man, how long are you out here? Like this is where I'm at now for the next year." I had no idea he's working with Kennedy. I had no idea he had taken that position. I hadn't talked to him.
Yep. He had taken that position. He was at the time. We were doing a Rescue Republic, so it was a bunch of firemen out there holding the
Yep.
flag. We presented the flag during the Rescue the Republic right before the election.
So good, man.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, man, I'm excited to dive into to you, your story, your journey. We got these guys here from around the world. They'll come in for some Q&A on the
I love
back
it.
end of the hour, man. But we're just going to talk about you, and I want to talk about all the things that you're building because I love what you're doing. But I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't give these guys a little background on what you faced in 2020, 2021, and all that. But man, if we can even go before that, who's Stephen Davis as a kid? When we have our young men on here, I like to start there because the reality is, you feel like you're supposed to have it all figured out at 18. None of us do. We might think we
None
do,
of us do. No, yeah,
but we might
none of
think
us
we
do.
don't.
It's funny because I was having this conversation with a couple guys. I was out having I met with an old fire chief of mine. I used to work for him. I outranked him at the end of the day, but um, I, he was always my chief. Still to this day, call him my chief. But he had reached out, a couple of weeks ago, and we went and had lunch a couple of days ago, and he was talking about he's in his 60s right now, saying how much he's learning just at his in his 60s right now.
Yeah,
And then we were having a conversation, a group of guys that I was with yesterday, and it's like, everything I've learned. I did a show yesterday at a guy, he and I are same age, 43, and he was like, "Man, I've learned so much in my 40s, and it's only been 3 years." And then we go back to our 30s, and then I say, when you're a kid growing up, you think you got it all figured out. I got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they have it all figured out, and I love
sir.
it. I love their energy. I love their passion, and all they need is a little bit of guidance and a little bit of direction. And while they got it all figured out, once they get a little bit older, they'll learn a little bit more, and they
Yeah,
hit those adolescent years, those adult years when they're young, 18 to about early 25, 26. And then when you start hitting your 30s, man, it's just a completely different perspective on life. Sometimes you can be wild, sometimes you can be a little bit more reserved and conservative. When you hit 40, it's a completely different, just
yeah,
different. I started learning things around 38 years old, starting to figure out about business, entrepreneurship, a different mindset with all kinds of different things. And then, 5 years later, well, we can get into that, but life has changed a lot in those
yeah,
in those
man.
in that time frame, that 5 years. But
Brother,
yeah, as I grew up in Orlando, I'm a
yeah.
Florida
Okay.
native,
Yep.
east side of Orange County. Um, I was two parents. I have three siblings, two older sisters, and a younger brother. And we had a good life. We didn't grow up real rich. We didn't grow rich up at all. Rich at all. My mom was a school teacher. My dad worked for the grocery store as a meat cutter. So I mean, we were middle class, lower middle class, and lived in a rough neighborhood. My
Yep.
dad lived in a rougher neighborhood
Yeah.
when he grew up. He was an Orlando native, and yeah, just worked through school. I went to a private school, my because my mom worked there, so she got the kids. Me and my brother half all. me for free, and then my paid full my brother, so half off, I guess.
Yeah.
And then public school in my high school years, and then went away to the army. I joined the army at 17. I was
Yeah.
my whole senior year. I was a really good soccer player, and never got looked at for college. My coaches knew that I was joining the army, so I never looked for college. But I played ball in the army team. I've been playing ball up until the last couple of years. I started coaching, but I can still run, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I still can go.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
yeah,
combat medic, and I believe if I did my
yeah.
research.
When I went in, I wanted to be a fireman, at 14, so I knew what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And the fire and the army, they offered an opportunity to be a fireman. But as I went to Tampa and I raised my right hand, they actually had said, "Hey, listen, we don't got that job anymore. We're doing away with the firefighter position, but we can make you a medic." And so they made me a combat medic. I went to the infantry. It was mechanized, so I rode around on Bradleys. So really cool. I was that medic that because our nickname was Doc. So they're like, "Hey, Doc, you want to go blow some stuff up?" And I was like, absolutely. So I love shooting. I love blowing things up, but I also, had my primary job, which was taking care of people. And um, did that for a couple years. I taught medic school for a little while. And then I went over to California. I became a flight medic, flying around in Blackhawks out in Vegas, in LA, San Diego, all through the Mojave Desert. Had a great time there. Decided I wanted to change in scenery. So I decided to go through special forces, ended up failing out, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and give the army I'm gonna put it on pause, and I'm gonna try the fire service because that's something I really wanted to do. I ended up getting
Yeah.
out, gotten picked up with the fire department, and I never looked back to the army, and did a ton of years growing real fast in the military,
I love it, man. Thank you
or
for
in the
that.
fire service, I should say.
In the fire service. Yeah, man. No, thank you for that. Thank you for where were you in California? You down in San Diego?
No, I was in I was just outside Barstow in Victorville. It was
Yep.
a place
Yep.
called Fort Irwin,
Yep. I know
and
exactly where you're talking about.
middle of the desert, hot desert,
It's the middle of friggin' nothing. Yeah,
nothing.
I had a fight back in Victorville, which is about
Oh
well,
yeah,
the only reason, that's the only reason to go there. Yeah,
yeah,
100%, man. So
yeah,
good for you. Yep, very cool, man. Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate the high level on that. The where you started talking about that perspective, and it's funny you mentioned 38, and that's when I started the first two businesses that I started simultaneously, and I started those at 38 and 37, 38. And it is, man, it's interesting on the perspective that you gain. And one of the things, and I'll be interested as we get into what you're building now too. One of the things that I think I see is that perspective shifts, but all of the confidence and kind of the piss and vinegar of being the 8 and 10 year olds that do know everything, right? Even though you
Right,
don't. It's
right.
like, all right, now you got some perspective, you got a little bit of wisdom, but man, sometimes I got to get these guys that now have the wisdom to get back a little bit of this too, a little bit of that fire. And it's like, I don't think you have to trade one for the other, man. And these, I don't know. And I think that's more of just a philosophical question in general, but do you see the same thing with guys too? They kind of lose some of that passion as they get older, or is that just uh, I don't want to make a broad sweeping statement, but I
You,
feel like I see that quite a bit.
you talk about guys just losing passion as they get
Just
older.
kind of losing passion as they get older anyways. They might still earn that perspective, but the passion and the
Yeah,
drive to go, for some of them.
I think I talk about this in a reel, and I essentially say, your most passionate performers are your strongest leaders. When they're not heard, when they're not listened to, when their voice isn't given any any level of respect, I should say, or any level of what am I trying to say?
Not put like
If
not
leaders
giving a
are
platform.
silenced,
Yeah.
yeah, they're if I say, hey Matt, I'm thinking about this, I'm working for you, and I said, hey, I think this is a great idea, and let's do
Yeah.
this. And every time I bring you something, maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not a great idea, maybe there's some solutions to whatever the problems are. And you just, yeah, that's a good idea, but you always go another direction and there's no input. And your leaders are essentially getting silenced. And
Hmm.
once they get silenced, they lose that passion. And when
Hmm.
they're not heard, when they're not given that level of respect to say, well, you know what, you've earned this position, but yet I'm not going to listen to anything you say, then you've essentially just silenced those guys. I'll give you an example. Is when I first became a battalion chief, I was on a big fire, and all my lieutenants, we were all came up in the same ranks. I was literally a lieutenant the shift before, and now I'm a battalion chief, and I've got a big old fire, and I have all these guys, and they're like, "Hey, chief, congratulations on the promotion. Hey, I think we should do this way. Hey, I think we should do it this way." And it gets a little overwhelming because you want to take everybody's opinion, but you
Mm,
also have to recognize in those positions you have to make a decision, and you have to make a decision whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision, but you have to have the level
mm,
of of awareness to
mm.
at least say, all right, my response or my job or what my decision was is not going well. It's not
Yeah.
working. My tact approach is not working. So I'm like, all right, Matt, what was your job? What was your thought? How would you attack this? And so
Mm,
I remember sitting there, and everybody was giving me like their thoughts on how we should attack this scene. And I listened to every single person, and I was like, listen, guys, I really appreciate everybody and everybody's input, but we got to go to work. This is how I want to handle it. And if this works, we're going to keep going. If it doesn't work, I'm going to reevaluate. I'm going to take a look at this, and I'm going to start looking at everybody's decision, and I'll go that direction.
yep.
And when you have a leader essentially that will do those things, I think it definitely sets a precedent of like, all right, he's hearing me, he's listening to me, he values what I say, and sometimes
Mm.
we do need that.
So good, man. Well, I mean, that's about a perfect segue as we can get to, 'cause I mean, you stood up for some very specific things in 2020, 2021. I mean, you were standing up and standing out and speaking out as a leader in your department when the mandates were coming out, and I know there was a cost for that, and I've heard enough to hear you frame being alpha as standing up for what's right regardless of the cost, right? And talking about realizing a personal mission right there that demands sacrifice. That very much was the case there for you. Do you mind laying that out a little bit? What all went down there?
In Orange County.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
so I ended up being a battalion chief. I was a battalion chief. I was with Orange County 15 and a half years. Great time, loved it. I had a great job. I got to turn this up a little bit.
No, no worries.
There it goes. Yeah, no, I had a great career. Very involved. Started a lot of programs when I was in the fire service. I started, the dive program that is probably second to none right now in the state of Florida. I mean, we just have an amazing dive program in Orange County. And um, while I started the program, I'm not the reason that program is as good as it is today. What I was able to do was come up with a vision, and then I was able to put people in position to carry out the mission to make it to what it is today. The reason it is so good today is because of a lieutenant who sits in that position today, who's essentially grown it
Mm.
and created it and had the vision that I had, and then just went crazy with it. And it's a beautiful product today. Um, so I was very involved. The paramedic program, it was in place, but it wasn't a very it didn't have a, it wasn't a well-oiled machine. I got there, I
Mhm.
revisioned it, revamped everything, and a lot of the stuff that I did that I brought to it, it was great, but it was good, but it wasn't great. And it was some elements that I was missing, but there was one thing that I was able to do. I brought in another lieutenant, and I had her look at these things, and I brought in a team, and I had them look at some things, and I picked the best people that I know that could make this program, and it is to me second to none in the state. A great paramedic program where we train paramedics and where we evaluate them. So I had a lot of things going on. I was in the process of working on a multi casualty bus for the department. It would have been, I think, the second or third. No, it would have been the third or fourth. As I know, I think Miami, Jacksonville, and Gainesville has one. So I think this would have been the fourth in the state. And I was working for I was planning a mass casualty bus, and unfortunately the funds fell through, and a long thing happened. But what my point is very involved with the fire department.
Mm.
Every from the moment I started to the day it ended, very involved, very passionate about the people I worked with. I'm a person that believes that, Matt, if we're just getting to know one another, but who are you? Who's your spouse? How many kids do you have? That was the type of person that I was. Is I wanted to know my captains, my lieutenants, my firemen, my engineers. I wanted to know exactly who their spouses were, who their kids
Mm.
were. I wanted to know about them. I wanted to know when I came in. I wasn't that chief that walked in. I was like, all right, here's mail. You guys better get your work done and then leave. I would spend hours at every firehouse, whether I was playing spades or playing basketball or training with the guys or going over, other things, administrative stuff. I was spending time building those relationships. So when the moment came during 2020, we all in the entire world didn't know what was going on. I mean, we can all agree to that. It was all at first, I think it was all pretty scary. I played the game for 2 weeks, and then I started thinking about it, especially when I when I walked into a restaurant and I had to wear a mask from point A to point B, but as soon as I get to point B, I was safe,
You're
and it
safe.
just didn't make sense.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, this is stupid. I'm not doing this no more. And so I played the game for 2 weeks, and then I stopped. And it's one of those hard things because as a leader, you get questions, and sometimes you don't know how to answer those questions. You really don't.
Mm.
You try to find the best solution. Try to find the best answer. I'm a middleman, so I'm trying to figure it out. And you're coming with me, and you're like, Chief, what do I do when I transport this patient, and then I contract this most deadliest virus that's ever been known to man, that's going to kill and wipe out our entire human race. I don't know, dude. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
reality. I don't know. I mean, this was what we were told. And well, what do I do? What if I transport somebody and do I go home to my family? What
Mm.
happens if I give it to my kids? What happens if I give it to my spouse?
Mm.
I don't know what to tell you. So when I go to my leadership and I say, how do I answer these questions? Because I really don't know how to answer these. Like, I'm concerned about this. I'm not the one that's going into these scenes, you
Right.
know, my guys are,
Right.
and never could get a straight answer. And this was the game that we played for how many years?
Yeah. Far
And
too long.
a long time,
Mm.
too long.
Mm.
And I truly believe today is because we have too many weak men, too many weak people in this world that refuse to stand up.
Mm.
If strong men would have stood up, then none of the nonsense would have happened. None of the nonsense would have gone as long as it did. It went on far too long. And I think I'm convinced today that while I believe that the eyes have been open for many, I still think there's a lot that still exists, and fear,
Mm.
lack of courage. Um, People will still look at it and be like, you know what? I can't say nothing because I might lose my job. I can't
Yeah.
say no. I'm getting that paycheck every 2 weeks,
Yep.
and you know, when I lost my job in 21 in October, and it wasn't because I refused to get the vaccination, because Orange County put a mandate out. The mayor said that if you're not vaccinated, we're going to terminate you. Well, our union had come in because there was like 400 of us that came out, and we're like, that's not going to happen. And then there was 70 of us that actually filed a lawsuit against the county. And so the mayor had kind of stepped back a little bit. Long story short, he stepped back and he basically said, all right, we're not going to terminate you, but we will give you discipline. And I didn't get terminated because I didn't get the vaccination. I actually had a religious exemption,
Mm.
and because it was something that I believed I didn't need. I'm a
Yeah.
healthy guy. I take care of myself. I take care of my family. I didn't need this vaccination. I wanted to know more about it. I wasn't against if you, Matt, said I think I'm going to get it.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, more power to you, man.
Yep.
But I ended up getting fired because the day that I was supposed to issue discipline, I had a list sent to me. It was over 100 names, and I oversaw 60, but I had 100 names on the list. And when I looked at the list, I recognized several of them because they were close friends of mine.
Yep.
I was very, like I said, I was very involved, very close with a lot of people. I mean, we had Orange County at the time, I believe, was the third largest fire department in the state. So I think it goes back and forth between three and four. But I looked at it and I said, "All right, look, I got Matt. Matt and I are close. We go fishing, we go hunting, we hang out. Our families are close. I know Matt has a religious exemption, I know my buddy Dan. I know he has a medical exemption. I know this because we're close. I know this rookie right here. He's got a vaccination because he was the one that was concerned about it, but he went ahead and did it anyways, and he showed me his card. But all three of them are on the list, and the list was had a lot of problems, a lot of
Yeah.
people on there that had these similar issues,
Yeah.
and so when I presented that to my leadership, I said, "Hey, listen, we got to relook at this. We have to. This list isn't correct." And the response from her was, "You know what? Just discipline them. Let them grieve it later." So essentially, let's
Good.
just write them up, let them grieve it later, let them go through the process, the stress of having to possibly get terminated, possibly lose their rank, get suspended, all these different things. Just do it, violate their rights, and then they can go through the grievance process because we have a union. And then a grievance process can take anywhere from a
Mm.
couple months to years to go through. And that's, to me, that's not right. I mean, you're talking about putting people into some really tough time,
Yeah.
not getting a paycheck if they get terminated, or going through the stress of just having to show up for something silly that could have
Yeah.
been avoided had leadership done the right thing. So because I refuse to issue discipline, because I refuse a direct order, that's essentially why I was relieved of duty that evening. I sat at home for 2 weeks. Well, I didn't sit at home. I had better things to do, but I was essentially relieved of duty for
Yeah.
2 weeks. And then on that second week, they brought me in. It could have been an easy phone call. Hey, pack your
Yeah.
bags. You're no longer employed. But they said, come in. I drove about 45 minutes into headquarters, sat there. I complied with their little mask mandate, just to show a sign of good faith,
Yeah.
and sat there at the table with the termination squad. And they read it to me, and I actually flipped to the back page and opened it up, and I'm like, man, this is nonsense. I was pissed. Ripped the mask off. Says, I'm not playing your stupid games no more. You guys are full of crap. And I probably said some other things, but
Sure. Understood.
um,
Man,
but that was it.
that was that letter that you or the that list that you got, was that more and to however much you want to speak to this, and I don't want to put you in any sort of weird situation, but when you look back on it, is that laziness, is that incompetence, or is that corruption coming down?
The above.
All of
100% all the above.
all
And
the
I'll tell you why. So laziness, because she could have easily said, all right, let's reevaluate this. Let's look at
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Incompetence, because someone messed up. Someone
yeah,
didn't cross their T's and dot their I's. So incompetence. And straight corruption, because I know, because I've pulled all the county records, I've pulled the records. I know that they were destroying documents. I know that they
mm,
were denying religious exemptions, all against the law. All against the law. You cannot destroy a government document. You cannot do it. You cannot deny someone a religious exemption. You cannot. And they were doing both of those, and I have all the proof. I have all the evidence. It's all in my book. Um, I pulled all the records, so it's a combination of all three. And there wasn't, in any good faith, these leaders, and I won't even refer to them as leaders because they're not. These people in
right,
positions of authority who got lucky, got ranked, because of what by whatever their demographic is, and
mm,
that's real. Okay, I'll call it out, but
man,
I will tell you, it's straight all
yeah,
three.
yeah,
Evil, straight evil.
very much so, very much so. And I know you've obviously pivoted well. And gentlemen, I know I want you guys, and Amy, and I see you, and I'm going to grab you in just a sec, sir, and we'll get you guys in here too. I want to talk about the pivot a little bit here too, because you went on to write. You wrote a book, Alone in the Fire. You got the shirt on right now, right? You talk about standing up to corruption in that book, and you liken it too to fatherhood and fathers today facing moral adversity, right, in their own home and in their own communities. And it's a very similar mission. And then you're moving on, raising alphas and emphasizing God and family and life skills. I mean, I'm looking at all this stuff as Roberto sent it over, and I'm like, oh, so like he's one of us. Like this is like
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
we're just all like this is all
Oh
same
yeah.
team, same freaking mission, all the way around, man. How long did that take before you're like, all right, cool, I've got this pivot and here's where I want to go? Or was that just like a, oh, I have to do this now? Or was like a, no, this has been kind of brewing in the back of my mind and this is the opportunity? Like, what was that pivot moment for you where you're like, all right, cool, well then I'm gonna go build this?
Well, it's always been something in my head.
Yeah,
When you become a father, your whole life changes.
yeah,
You become a parent, your whole life changes. You don't really realize that until, that moment happens.
right.
Um, there's so many different examples I can give. I can give an example of my oldest and he's 10. I can give an example of him when he was getting his vaccinations, and I wasn't ever against it. But when he got his vaccinations, the pediatrician wanted to give him 6 shots all in one day. And, being in a medic for as long as I've been a medic, I thought about it and I was like, that doesn't make sense. Why would I give 6 shots all today? I mean, this kid's 6 months old. Like, why would I do that? And
Mhm.
so I thank God I had the wit, the intelligence to say, you know what, doc, I appreciate what you're doing, but we're only going to do one today, and we're going to space this out. And I'm convinced today that my son at one had a really bad reaction. We were in the hospital for a week. Doctors, we got paid, we got charged a lot, and they never could figure out what it was.
Yeah.
But I started thinking about it, a couple years ago. This is over 10 years ago now, but I was thinking about it recently, and like I'm convinced today that it was a vaccination that he had, and they just were refused to admit it
Yeah.
and refused to acknowledge it. But I'm completely against it now. I'm one of those people now that are completely against anybody getting vaccinations. I don't care how old, how young. I'm completely against it.
Mhm.
I don't think our body's designed for that. Our body's designed by God. Our body's designed to heal. Our body is made to improve itself if we do what's right. If we're not putting poisons in our body, and there's a lot of poisons that we all do it, and I'm sure we can all raise our hands and say what
Sure.
poison we put in. It's not just drugs. I mean, we're
Sure.
talking poisons, the food that you eat. I mean, sugars, caffeine, bad. There's all kinds. I can go listen by list, but I think as a father, I realized it really for this point of time is when my 10-year-old, who was 5 at the time, was in kindergarten, having to wear a face shield. I refused to put a mask on him, but wore a face shield. And I missed his whole kindergarten. They wouldn't, first child, never got to see him go to kindergarten because I wasn't able to enter the school. I wasn't able to participate at like that. No kindergarten graduation, none of those cool things that you get to see as a father during that time. And who is going to speak up for your children if not you, the father, or you, the mother? Those are
Hmm.
the people that are going to speak up. Every day my kids go to school, and there's no way that I know what they're being taught. There's no way for sure I can hear what this teacher's preaching or teaching or whatever they're doing, but I have to give them the strong foundation, and I have to give them a direction to say, look, this is what this is the things we do. And I see that you got a lot of young faces here, and I encourage all you young guys here. You guys have fathers, and if you guys don't have fathers, maybe you have a father figure in your life, or maybe you have a really strong mother in your life. And there's going to be times, and I promise you, because I have to deal with it as a parent, and I dealt with it as a young man. But you're going to have to look at your parents sometimes, and you're going to be like, oh my God, they're crazy. My dad is crazy, my mom is crazy. But you got to look at they're doing what's best for you, and we don't make the decisions right all the time. We mess it up. My dad messed up all kinds of different stuff. My mom messed up all kinds of stuff. But they're doing what they can, the best that they can, and we try to, because you don't really know how much you love your kids until you become a parent. Like how much a love is for your kids until you become a parent. And but I encourage you guys, you young faces out there, those are something that you guys have to really look at with your father, and your parents. Just give them that level of respect. Like, I hate what they're saying right now, but it is what it is. I was talking to my neighbor. He washes my cars. I got some really nice cars now, and I just sent him over this one of my buddies. He's got this brand new Ferrari that's coming into the um, that he's picking up on Monday. And so this my neighbor is 16 years old. he's a hard worker. And like I said, he always takes care of my cars now, my truck. And I told him, say, hey man, I got a new car for you to wash. So I said, this is going to be something really, really nice. And I sent it to him. And he's like, man, that's awesome. He goes, where's it at? And it's about a 40-minute drive for him. He just started driving. And he's like, I don't know if my dad's going to let me drive that far. And I was like, you know what? I don't disagree with your dad's decision. I said, it sucks that, that you feel that there's not this opportunity that I really want to watch this car, but it's so far. My dad won't let me drive that far. You're a new driver. Your dad's concerned about you.
Yep.
That cool Ferrari, man, that guy can drive it over to you, or you can meet him halfway, or work out some kind of deal. But yeah, I definitely agree with what your dad says. If your dad says no 45 minutes is just too far of a drive, too much traffic, too much whatever, I agree
So
with it.
good. There you go.
I may be the same way with my kids. I might be a little bit more, give them a little bit more latitude. That, and this kid's super responsible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I
Oh
think I got
man,
off tangent. But
no, it's all no, it's good, man. Speaking a lot of the speaking a lot of the same language in so many different ways. But that parent job, man. And again, we got a lot of parents on here with us too. That parent
oh,
job,
good, yep,
and we've talked to these young men here too. Like I've never, mine are 14, 12, and 9 right now.
yeah,
So cool, man. I've never raised a 14-year-old before. It's my first time. And guess what? When she turns 15, it's my first time with a 15-year-old. All right. Now I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of them just because of my background and my career. And so that's great and that's helpful. Very much so. But it's still my first time raising one. And I'm gonna do my damnedest to do the
your
best I
damnedest.
can. That's
Look,
it.
I have a cousin who's 6 years younger than I am,
Yep.
and him and his wife had babies right out of high school.
Yeah.
My wife and I didn't have our first until we were married almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And um, but I look at that. He's been on my show. Actually, we sat in this room right here at the clubhouse because I'm getting a lot of work done on the house right now. So my office is a little busy. I got someone working on it right now. So we were sitting right here in this room at the clubhouse in the neighborhood, and he goes, I asked him for advice. He's 6 years younger than I am, and I'm like, hey man, he's raised three boys, and they're all one's getting ready to graduate or just graduated, and the other two
Yeah.
are in high school, and he's got more experience raising teenagers than I do.
Right. There you
So
go.
he's got three times that he's done it. I've not done it once.
All right.
So I have to look at those things. The only thing that I can relate it to is potentially some of my friends who are raising um those ages and be like,
Sure.
Matt, give me some advice. I don't
Yep.
have any daughters, but what does a 15-year-old go through? What does a 14? I have no idea
Yeah.
outside of what my own experience is.
Yep. Yep. That's a huge part of that, you guys, is that's why we have tribes like this. That's why we have circles like this. Because sometimes it is you need somebody your age to relate to and go, how is this happening, in your life and what does this look like? Sometimes you need somebody older, the mentorship side of that. But again, if we all come together on the same value set, we don't have to all have the same exact ideas, but we've got the same values. We know we're starting from a good place, man. And that's why these conversations are so valuable. No, really good, man. Amian, let's get you in here, sir.
Hey, appreciate it, and thank you, sir, for speaking to the group today. Man, you are my kindred spirit. A lot of the things that you're saying, I've been dealing with and struggling, at least from the military perspective. So it's interesting hearing, what you went through with the COVID stuff. As a firefighter or whatnot. I fought the same fight. As it pertains to religious accommodation process and seeing how they were treating exemptions and seeing how they were making up confusing policy to restrict liberty and leave and your rights and your ability to go to church and things like that are just like blatant unconstitutional and seeing good people around you that are good people that didn't adhere to their oath or at least stand up and call it out. So being alone in the fire, I felt that and I fought that as well. And so looking back, I'm trying to get out of the military now, and I'm struggling with this. How am I supposed to feel? And so I have a twofold question for you is, one, looking back now, it's easy to feel vindicated, but I don't feel that. Do you feel like satisfied? Do you feel bitter? Looking back at your comrades, your leadership in the community and how you deal with that. And the second aspect is, were those people held accountable, whether by law, policy, and how you deal with that? Because On the military side, it's a no and no on ours. Like they just sweep it under the rug and move forward, and it's hard to deal with that. So I'm just interested in hearing your perspective on how you are
Amy, and thanks.
personally handling that and dealing with that. Yeah,
Good questions.
Amy, and thank you for the question. And you said you're in the military. What branch?
Navy.
Navy. Thank you for your service. We'll talk trash later because I'm Army, but uh, but yeah, thank you for your service. And yeah, no, it's not easy. Bitter. I can't tell you, man, how many times it's been stressful, especially when it first happened. And then the first year I went through it, I was very blessed in a lot of ways. And if you're religious or not, I'm a Christian, and whether you're a Christian or you have some other faith, I believe in faith. Whether it's you're a Jewish, Muslim, it doesn't matter in my opinion. In my eyes, this is what I believe, and if you believe something else, it's what your faith is. But um, I walked. Even today, it gets frustrating because last night I got some news. I'm trying to sponsor a firefighter event, coincidentally, and it's a strategic move on my end, but it's with my old fire department who fired me, and they basically came to me. One of my buddies came. They're like, "Yeah, they're not going to approve this," and I came in. I was like, "Hey, I want to be the title sponsor. I'm going to drop a lot of money, but I want to be there." And they're like, well, they're afraid that you're going to get on the mic because we have to get mic time. And I was like, well, I'm going to get my mic time. And they're like, you're going to come out there and you're a pretty unpredictable. And I said, listen, I can be professional. I wouldn't be unprofessional. But at the same time, it's just frustrating because I dedicated a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears to this place. And then I can't even give you I'm giving you a lot of money too, and I can't even get an opportunity to spend, a training center that I helped design. It's taken years to finally get put together, and now they're opening it, and I can't even be a part of it still. And this was 3 years ago that this happened, and so there is some bitterness still. But on my way home last night, I ended up just having a quick prayer, and I just said, because I've been fighting a federal lawsuit for 3 years on all this, and you talk about corruption.
Yeah, same.
There's so much corruption in the government, and there's so many things. I went to the appellate court, won it. It's a 5% chance to win it in the appellate court. I did it. I actually hired RFK's attorneys out in California, and they helped me win this. Scott Street and his firm, and as soon as we win it, the county judge, who was told, hey, you need to judge it this way, said, I'm going to double down and dismiss my case yet again. So I'm back in the appellate court. So it's just legal tennis back and forth, hoping that I'll stop and just get exhausted with it. But I refuse to. I had a friend of mine ask me, he goes, hey, Steve, why you're making tons of money? Why not just let it go? Well, I've been blessed. God has blessed me with an opportunity, and I'm doing well, and I'm super excited about that. But there's men and women who don't have that same opportunity, and while they don't believe the things that I believe, and they don't stand for the things I stand for, I'm still there for them, even if they don't care for me, because they're going to go through something one day, and I have the ability to stand up for them still, and I'm going to. I'm not going to give up, and I refuse to give up. But I did ask to say, I asked him if he would just get this finished, because while it's been 3 years, it's a little taxing, not personally anymore. I kind of let it go. I had to separate myself. I've had to be successful. I've had to focus on other things, family, and then of course everything that I do on the side, to just hustle. But there is a little bit of bitterness, and you just kind of have to look towards the positives. If you're a father, then you have to look at your kids. If you're a husband to a beautiful wife, then you have to be that man. If you're I don't know if you're an officer or enlisted, but if you're whatever position you're in the military, in the Navy, then you really just got to focus on those things. And maybe God is telling you, maybe whoever you believe in is telling you it's time to leave. When I left, when I got terminated from Orange County, I wanted to be there for 25 years. That's what my goal was. I grew up there. That was my passion. It was ended in a blink of an eye, and God gave me two opportunities. He gave me an opportunity to make a lot more money, at a place nearby, in my house. I was offered a salary of 250 a year. I was making 150 at the time. And then I had a position in the fire service still. I would have been making 94 grand a year. And I told the boss at the one company, I said, listen, I got to interview. This is where I want to be, because I wanted to be a fireman. I didn't care about the money. And so I turned down this really nice paying salary for something a lot less than what I was making, and a lot less than what I would have made. And I believe now that that was just closure. God gave me that opportunity. A year and a half, I worked as a division chief. So I got terminated from Orange County as a battalion chief, got a promotion, third in command, not in pay, but in rank, and worked there for a year and a half, had a great time working there. And then I ended up leaving because I wanted to pursue other things. So maybe that's what you need. I think you had twofold. I don't know if I answered both of them or not. I kind of went long-winded.
No, that was good. I appreciate it. You're saying all good things. The lack of accountability on the institution or the people,
That's it.
given what we know now, I still feel like it hasn't happened. I know that you and others are still trying to fight that.
No, it hasn't
Yeah,
happened at all.
yeah, yeah, and I still
There's no
struggle with that.
accountability. It's
Yeah.
hard because you've got so many people, and this is what I talk about, weak men. We have to have strong men, and this is why I won't give up. I know why people give up is because they make it impossible for you to win. And I have another story, but I won't go into it. But it's impossible to win. Sometimes it feels impossible, but if you continue to push, you continue to fight. You have to look at any type of war film that your favorite, whether it's 300, whether it's Braveheart, whether it's Gladiator, whatever movie, Troy, whatever war movie, and you can go Band of Brothers, you can go all kinds of other movies, but take that for an example and just look at that and be like, these guys didn't give up. Look at the old school movie Glory. Those guys took the hill and got destroyed, but they went in there with confidence and they wouldn't fought. I think that's what needs to happen with men today, women today, young men that I'm looking at here in their faces today. You can't stop. You can't give up. You have to be persistent. You have to be consistent. You have to come with power. You have to come with if there's policies and procedures in place. I'm quick to blast you on those, because I'll look them up. I'll hold you accountable. But yeah, I think in your situation, it's hard because the Navy it's established, and to hold your superiors account, then it cost you. It 100% could cost you. But maybe that's God's way of saying it's time for you to leave.
You're right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And yeah, I was just, my wife and I had a conversation not too long ago on I said, look at Braveheart. You look at the end of that movie. I don't care if it's historically accurate or not. You look at the end of the movie. He didn't give up, right? He was to the point of being tortured. And sorry, by the way, guys, this is a spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it now, the movie's been out a little while, so get on it.
It's been out a minute.
It's been out a bit. So, right. But just, yelling out freedom. I'm like, that's got to be the last word that I say too.
Yeah.
Like it just has to. So
Has to be.
if I feel like at any point I'm going to be like I'm on my deathbed, you're just going to hear me saying this over and over and over just to make sure it's the last thing I say. Right. But it's like that. It's that like there was no accountability there. There was no winning there. The winning was just not quitting. The winning was in not giving up, and that's like you said, there are so many ways that we get where organizations who are established will just wear you down. And it's just that's it. It's wear you down, wear you out. But if you don't give up, you win from not giving up. Let's get you in here, Mr. Bryson.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on as a fellow veteran and Army guy. You can joke, we can joke on the Navy guys all we want.
There it is. Thank you for your service, David.
Hey, brother, appreciate it. As you look back in the conversation we're having today, you can see the patterns in your life. You can see where adversity hits you and transitions you, like the SF deal, pushing you out of the military and transitioning you over. The OC, Orange County problem that came up, pushing you out and making that transition. When you stood up, when I look at those patterns, I also realize that in my own life, there are patterns of where I made a choice somewhere. I come back later and reflect on and didn't like. Is there a time in your life as you look back on it that even it's in your military career early on where you were forced to compromise in your own belief and settled for that? And that really aided you to the point that where you were right in the right to stand up to leadership at the OC deal and to do the right thing when it hit you?
You know, no, I want to say, you know, I'm not a perfect man, so I want to say that there are definitely times in my life that I've probably been that I've compromised maybe my integrity, compromised things that I believed in, my convictions. I had a lieutenant when I was in Lake County said, you know, that's what your problem is. He looked at me and I outranked him by a lot, and he goes, you know, that's your problem is you let your convictions take too much, and that's why you got your butt terminated. And I looked at him and I'm like, that's just a weak man talking right there. That's just weakness. And as a 20-year-old, okay, I can look back and say, all right, um maybe I can say there's mistakes that I would made because I didn't know any better. Maybe I didn't have a true leader to really role model after. I was asked a question recently, who my role models are. I'm 43 years old. I don't have no role models. I'm a grown man. Um, my role models, I have lots of men who inspire me, who I aspire to be like in some of the things that they accomplished. But I'm 43. I don't have any role models anymore. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not a 15-year-old who's looking at, some basketball player or football player. I'm a grown man. So no, I don't have role models today, but I do have men that inspire me. I do have men that I look at and go, man, that's he's got some things that I'm sure have compromised his integrity, but he's got a lot of solid attributes. And so yeah, looking back, there are things that I could probably pick out if I were to really think about it. That, like I said, I'm not a perfect person. I've made many a mistake, but everything
Lost
that I've
audio.
made that mistake has helped me be stronger. You hear me? You hear me? There you are. Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
There we go. Gotcha.
You guys all froze. All right.
We got
I
you.
don't know what I left off at.
Yeah, I think
I'm not sure where I left off. Anyways, yeah, what I was saying is, I don't have role models in my life. I have a lot of men who inspire me. I have a lot of men who I look to for to better myself. But there are many things as a young man that I made mistakes. That doesn't mean I'm not still making them today. I just try to do a better job of holding the right path. And I think those things have led to the reason I made the decision not to issue discipline, to stand up for my convictions, because I don't believe in that lieutenant's stance, because he's a weak man. And if he continues that way of thinking, he'll always be a weak man. And I feel sorry for his children. Um, but that's what I mean by that is I think it did give me my life. I've had a pretty decent life. I had great parents, great grandparents, and outside of not growing up in a real wealthy family. I mean, my parents did really well taking care of my brother and I and my sisters. I mean, they did a really good job, and they put me on a right path with God and a right path in what they knew. And so I give a lot of credit to them in that sense. But um, yeah, I think it did help me get to where I was making that decision.
yeah, man.
I appreciate it, man. And the reason why I asked that is because I can look back in my military career when I stood on the carpet with a bunch of soldiers who didn't deserve to be punished and sat there and couldn't do anything about it, and watch them strip them of their rank and destroy their lives realistically. And I watched that, and that it affects me to make one stand up more for things in the battles that I deal with. And that's why I asked, just because it's as a veteran, we see those locations, we see those moments, and we carry them with us. And as
Yeah.
you said about parents not making the right choices, but we learn from them, so the next kid gets it better or a little different, and we learn from those aspects. So I appreciate it. Thanks for all your time, brother.
Yeah, David. I will say that when you look at some of those things, because you're going through, it's hard to make those decisions, because you're looking at it and you're like, I want to stand up, but you know that if you, as soon as you stand up, the way this corrupt government is, you're going to lose your you'll lose everything. You're going to lose your position. And, you have to look at it. I look back now, and while I'm still helping people and saving, trying to do my best to take care of people best I can, I also have to look after, I've done it now. I've done it a few times, and I'm still doing it today. But I also have to think about, I'm going to do it a little bit more intelligent now, and that's why I've built businesses and built brands and companies, and done really well in the last couple of years, where I have that freedom, that financial freedoms, to be like, I can hit them in different ways. I can hit them in the pocket now. I can do a lot of other things. So I think you got to put some focus on it. But yeah, it's not easy. I can tell you that it's not an easy thing. It doesn't get any easier at any point.
True story. Good stuff, Mr. Bryson. KG.
Mr. Davis, thanks for coming in today.
Hey, how you doing, Kevin?
Good, how
to
are
meet
you? So my question is the COVID pandemic. I see that as maybe a hard time that created some strong men. When the next pandemic or similar situation comes around, did we create enough strong men to stand up to the government, whatever entities that are going to try and taking our liberties away the next time around?
Interesting
Was
question.
that enough of a hard time to create enough strong men that we stand up to it next time?
God, I hope so. I really do. I really hope, because I'm very disappointed in a lot of pastors around the country, around the world, because a lot of pastors who are these so-called shepherds for their sheep closed down, and they did it because of one thing, and it's because of money. Because they know that if they didn't abide by the rules that the government put out, then they would lose their tax exemptions, and they would lose their ability to open. And we need more strong men. We did see quite a bit of women come out, and they were really strong, and I'm proud to see that in our society. But let's be honest, the men are the ones that have to go to war, the ones that have been taking care of their families and taking care of their countries for centuries. And if we haven't done it this last 5 years, if we haven't created those smaller communities, I think that this is perfect. Matt, when you say this is where you've built this tribe, I love it, because you have a small tribe in this. Raising Alphas has its own small tribe, and all these different communities, these smaller communities collaborating in some way. We're building our own army in a way. Okay, now the problem is we're not organized, and it's not organized in a way, but we can have our voices be organized. Obviously, for us to take arms and everything, that would be wild. And hopefully we have the military men and women that are in there that would stand up and be like, yeah, I can't do this either. But I don't know, man. I really hope to God that we've created a world awakening to the nonsense, to the bullshit, because we can't go through this again. We have to have these young men. Believe it or not, I don't know what the average age of our young men sitting on this show today. I would say under 18, based on some of the faces. But believe it or not, I mean, you guys were, not long ago, was your age, the ones that were fighting in the wars, and you were the ages that were leading battles, and you guys were getting promoted to positions of authority and leading men,
Right.
young men your own age. It wasn't men my age.
Right.
Yeah, there were men my age that were in there, but it was young men in their 20s and some younger. But yeah, I really hope so. I really hope so.
An
I do
interesting
too. It's
question.
just so few people stood up in those years of COVID and what did we just say on a different call? It was like, if 3% of the people stand up, then that's enough to start a revolution, but
Yeah.
it just was so few.
I'm not sure what those numbers are, but man, I would venture to say that if you had 3% of our community stood up, this would have ended. I could tell you right now. I said it years ago, but the city of New York, FDNY, they got, man, I don't know what their number count is anymore, but they've got well over 10,000 firefighters in that organization, and large fire department, the largest. And if those men, and I've had a lot of conversations with those firefighters up there, and actually when I was in DC with Johnny, then I actually interviewed several of them. But and I said this to them. I said, had more of your um, colleagues stood up, fire departments around the country would have stood down, and it would have never happened. You would have never seen it. New York is literally the epicenter for everything, and had it started there at FDNY and NYPD, had those men and women stood up and like, yeah, we're not going to do this, and they really truly came together, then I truly believe that it would have never. I think it would have never happened. I think of the United States. It's funny because I tell this story a lot. Is my wife is from Europe, and we had just got back from visiting her family in January 2020. We're laying in bed, and she's scrolling through one of her social medias, and she sees something happen over in China where they're falling dead, and all those videos that we all seen at the beginning of the pandemic. And she's like, "Yeah, they're forcing people to go to their homes, and they're locking people away, and they're taking people to jail." And I was like, babe, don't even worry about that. It ain't never gonna happen here. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. And I tell you what, man, it is truly an eye opening, and I really hope that woke a lot of people up.
Yeah, same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, that's it's wild to think about, and then you partner that with what Amy was talking about on lack of accountability. It's a scary thing. And last week we were talking to G. Michael Hopf, who's an author, and he's the guy who started going around in 2020, 2021, the whole
Yeah.
hard times create good, like that whole cycle
Yep.
came out of his books. And so we were talking to him last week about this entire thing, and you talk about that lack of accountability plus the lack of people standing up, and um, it's an interesting look into the human psyche and where we're at. And again, I hope I'm the same as you, man. I hope people are strong enough. And whether they are or whether they're not, what I can control is here. What I can control is the family that I'm raising. What I can do my best to do is build these tribes, until, in case, or just because it's the right freaking thing to do right now. And we can hope that none of that stuff ever happens. No matter what, the game plan remains the same. We just got to, keep control of what's going on between the ears right there. And that's it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
keep organizing with like-minded individuals. Man, I know we're at the hour, man, but I want to, so like where, not just where do people find you, but what are you building now that you're excited? If you have a couple minutes, just what are you excited about as far as what you're building? And then we can say, where do we find you? And most importantly to us, how does Apogee support you?
Well, I've got the Raising Alphas project. I've opened up several businesses in the time that I've left the fire service, which has provided me a lot of opportunities. And yesterday I was meeting with some new guys to talk about new opportunities. Just because I'm sitting at a different table now. I'm not sitting at the table where I'm talking about the cool fire or how bad management was. I'm sitting around businessmen, entrepreneurs, and those type of things. That's what I'm doing now. Changing my circles. But I have the Raising Alphas project. I also opened up a company called Choice Press. We're looking for authors. I've written, obviously The Lone in the Fire is my top book right now, but I've got Passing Down the Legacy is coming out here real soon. We're doing some marketing right now, and we're putting stuff together. But it's essentially, I see some of the guys here. You guys are fathers, and the passing down legacy is nothing proprietary. It's something you've probably even seen out there already. It's nothing. The difference is we really want to see everybody's story. We're really highlighting it. It's really engaged on, fathers and mothers and, uncles and grandfathers and grandparents. But it's basically a designed to hear people's stories and find their unique story. Because every single man on this, it looks like we only have the men here, but every single man here has a unique story. It doesn't matter how young you are, how old you are. Everybody has a unique story. And with my company Choice Press, we're looking for authors. And with Passing Down the Legacy, I want to know those stories about the men, their good times, their bad times, their failures, their wins. I want to know about those things. And I think it's important because every time that you tell your story, that's why I wrote my book, because I didn't want my story to get lost. I didn't want my story to be forgotten. I wanted to leave something behind. But every time you tell your story and it's something unique, someone learns from it. maybe none of you take anything from what I'm saying today. Maybe you don't, but maybe someone on the show next week or whenever the next show is, you find something that resonates with you. And I think that that's what's important. That's the importance. But yeah, I mean, you can find me on Raising Alphas Project. I have a YouTube show with my business partner, David. We've had that for a couple years. We do a lot of similar things. We have conversations. We try to open up a different conversation where it's not just 12 years of school. It's a different perspective. It's something that, I was never not taught. I have a master's degree and I was never taught how to run a company. But I know how to. And I want to teach other people how to build wealth, how to do taxes, how to do, be a better parent. I have 2 boys, but I've never raised a daughter. I want to know about those things. I don't have foster kids, but I interview people with foster children, people that have parents that are dealing with autism or other medical problems, a loss of a child, how to deal with those grief. Those are important stories, and that's why I think it's unique. But yeah, you can find me on the Raising Alphas Project. We have Instagram, we have YouTube. My website is chiefstephendavis.com. Stephen is Stephen, so it's spelled with a PH, but chiefstephendavis.com. And I do things. I consult with different business opportunities, public speaking, engagements, podcasts, and stuff like that. I have a couple books. I've had quite a bit of stuff that I've been on in media, and I really try to engage with the community in a lot of different ways because to me, I don't think life ended at the end of my fire service career. That was just a chapter in a life, and no pun intended. But I wrote the book, and that book is up on the shelf now.
Right.
That chapter's closed, and I'm moving on to bigger and better things. This is the best part. They say, oh, you're getting old and it's all downhill from now. Well, isn't that the best part of the ride? Anytime you go on a roller coaster, that's the best part of the ride, right?
Downhill part. That's right,
The
man.
downhill part. That's the time where we're all screaming with fun.
And I'll tell you what, I
That's
suspect
exactly how I look at it.
and I suspect it's a little better when you've designed the track too. That's the way I
Yeah.
look at it too. Design that to the best of your ability right there.
Yeah, but I mean, support. You guys can just go over to the YouTube channel, my IG account, Chief Stephen Davis on my IG or my that's my personal or any of my brands. Just subscribe. Keeping the conversation. Hit me up with comments. Be like, I liked what you said there. I don't like what you said there. Yeah, I align with you there. I don't align with you there, man. I love the conversation. Maybe you'll change my mind. Maybe I'm looking at something. I'm not perfect. Maybe I'll learn something from you. And my close friend, he's helped me achieve great wellness, and he's 10 years younger than me, and he's opened up doors for me and gave me a blueprint, and that's what I want to share with other people is how to create wealth, how to create financial freedoms, how to get back your time and control. That to me is what is important. But yeah, you can reach out to me anything. To me that's the best way. I support you, you support me.
100%. That's the way it should go, man. And again, you're leading, that's it. You're leading and you're just on to the next chapter of leadership and what that looks like, man. And anybody that's running that way, man, is a part of this team, is a part of this tribe. So yeah, we got your back. Yeah, 100%, man. Thank you so much.
Love the conversations. Would love to chat with any one of your guys here in your tribe. If you guys have more questions and you just don't want to say it right here, man, you guys can hit me up anytime, man. I always make myself available. If I don't get back with you right away, it might because I didn't see it, but I tried my best to get, to hit you guys back up, but I make time.
I love it, man. I appreciate it. I'm gonna take these guys through a debrief. I'm gonna shoot you. I'll have a few meetings today that'll go for the next few hours, but I'm gonna hit you by this weekend. I'll make sure we're connected on social as well. I know we're connected via email. I'll make sure we're connected via social too, and make sure we can keep the conversation rolling, man. I'm hopeful to get down to that Orlando area too. We got a couple campuses rocking and rolling down there, Winter Park and right in Orlando proper. And so I'm hopeful we'll get out there to visit, man, and come shake.
Let's definitely connect. I would love to do more with you guys.
Yeah, man, we'll have to rock and roll. So we'll keep.
All right, we can definitely collab with some things that we want to do too. So
super cool. Oh, I love it, Chief. I'm grateful, gentlemen. Let's give a big thank you, huh?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
for
sir.
having me.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Guys.